Well, the story of an alleged Washington whistleblower has gotten stranger. The man in question is named Gal Luft, and his current whereabouts are unknown. He disappeared in Cyprus. He jumped bail and is now a fugitive. Republicans call him a credible informant in the House Oversight Committee's investigation of Hunter Biden. That much we've known, but now things have taken another turn. The Justice Department has unsealed an indictment against Luft, alleging he is, among other things, an arms dealer, an unregistered agent for China, and that he lied to federal agents. CNN's Kara Scannell has been following his trail. So, Kara, who is this guy? What's he being charged with?
Yeah, so his name is Gal Luft, and he is a U.S.-Israeli citizen, someone who is a co-director of an energy think tank. Now, what prosecutors said, they unsealed this indictment late yesterday. They allege that he's involved in numerous crimes involving a lot of crimes overseas. They say that he was acting as an agent of China here in the U.S. and had registered as that. He was also a broker of illicit arms deals, and he was, trying to be a matchmaker to help the sale of Iranian oil, something which would violate U.S. sanctions. And they also say that he lied when he was interviewed by the FBI.
And what's his relationship to Hunter Biden?
So Luft claims that he has incriminating information about the Biden family's business dealings overseas, particularly with China. And that has made him someone of interest to Republicans who have said that he is an informant. He's a potential top witness as they are looking to investigate the Biden family business dealings overseas.
And yet now he's being charged with being an agent of China.
Yeah, that's right. And what's even more confusing here is that he was doing work, according to the U.S. authorities, with this Chinese conglomerate. And that is the same conglomerate that he says was doing business with the Bidens. And
has he responded, or how has he responded?
Yeah, so the other funny thing here is that he was initially arrested in Cyprus on these charges, and then when he was waiting extradition, he jumped bail, and so he is now considered a fugitive by the U.S. government. But at the time in February, he did tweet out a denial of these allegations, in which he said, "I've been arrested in Cyprus on a politically motivated extradition request by the U.S. The U.S. claiming I'm an arms dealer. It would be funny if it weren't tragic. I've never been an arms dealer. DOJ is trying to bury me to protect Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden. Shall I name names?" And his lawyer also telling us after these charges were unsealed that this is a vicious attempt to silence a witness.
But he's in the wind. He's nowhere to be found.
He's in the wind. We don't know where he is. He has been active on Twitter, retweeting some comments by one of the senators who has been supportive of him, but he has not shown his face, and there's no indication if he is going to come to the U.S. to face these charges.
There's also this letter obtained by CNN from the U.S. attorney overseeing the Hunter Biden criminal probe that seems to undercut a number of the claims made by an IRS whistleblower.
Right. So that IRS whistleblower testified before Congress saying that David Weiss, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney for Delaware, had told him and others in October of 2022 that he had requested special counsel status, which would have enabled him to bring criminal charges anywhere in the U.S., and that Weiss had told him, the whistleblower at the time, that he was denied that by top Justice Department officials. Well, Weiss, in this letter to Congress, is trying to clarify the record here. He's saying that he never asked to be special counsel. He wanted to be a special attorney, which is different under the statute, and he said that he was assured that he would have authority to bring charges in any jurisdiction. Now, ultimately, he did negotiate this plea deal with Hunter Biden, where he will plead guilty to those 2 tax misdemeanors later this month in Delaware.
Right. Kara Scannell, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Some perspective now from former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who's now CNN senior law enforcement analyst. So the primary witness, or one of the primary witnesses in the Hunter Biden saga, is now a fugitive and charged with, among other things, arms trafficking. What are we to make of this?
Wow, what a complicated story to try to weave through. But I think it's important to remember that he is potentially a witness for the committee. This is not the way we typically think of witnesses, as people who would be testifying in criminal trials. He's actually a defendant in a criminal matter. I think it's also important to note that the case that the government has brought against Gal Luft is very, very serious. Contrary to his public statements, he hasn't been charged simply with lying to the federal government. He's been charged with violating U.S. sanctions against Iran. He's been charged with acting as an illicit arms broker between countries like China and Iran and other countries. So these are very serious offenses. It's also clear from the statements from the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, they have in some form his communications. They've quoted things that he said to people and referring to arms as toys and things like that, which means this is a very complicated, probably long-running investigation in which they either had access to his historical communications through court-authorized access or potentially even Title III coverage, electronic surveillance of his communications. So this is not just a simple case that the government cooked up after they interviewed him and didn't like what they said. This is likely the result of a very long and complicated investigation.
Is it possible it's politically motivated, as Luft is calling it?
You know, I suppose that's possible, but I find it to be highly unlikely. You know, the Justice Department, contrary to some people's belief, the Justice Department and the FBI do not initiate cases against people for political reasons. And as I indicated, this is not a case that simply turned on an interview that didn't go the way the government wanted. This is a case that probably came from months and months and months, maybe years of investigation of this individual for very serious offenses, from violating the Foreign Agent Registration Act to arms dealing and all kinds of other matters. So there's a lot more to this than just that one interview that he allegedly had with the government that apparently didn't go well.
Just lastly, I talked to Congressman Dan Goldman about this, but what do you make of FBI Director Chris Wray going to testify before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow?
This is a really important piece of oversight of the FBI, and it happens on an annual basis. And there are many significant and reasonable questions that the House should have for the FBI director at this moment in time. Questions about the way the FBI prepared or didn't for January 6th. Questions about how the FBI has handled their efforts to reform the FISA process. All kinds of really legitimate things. Unfortunately, I find it highly unlikely that any of those serious and reasonable and legitimate oversight issues will come up. This will probably devolve into yet another version of the weaponization of the FBI, an effort for congressmen to, like Jim Jordan, to propagate this myth that the FBI is somehow biased against Republicans, which is laughable, but I expect that's what we'll see tomorrow.